Hello folks, welcome back to another video. We are here again, just after Christmas, to give you some more hobby nightmares. And on this episode, we will find out why, as a Games Workshop manager, you should really not mistreat your customers if they're the only customers you have. Let's dive right in, shall we? Yancey says, "Hello again, exiled imbecile. I hope all is well. As always, much appreciation to you and your channel, and best wishes for a Merry Christmas." Thank you very much, my friend. Merry Christmas to you. It is my favourite kind of part of the year. Now, I'm not reading this part. This isn't in the Hobby Nightmare. It's my favourite part of the year right now. It's the time between Christmas and New Year, where all the pressure's gone, all the family have gone home, and you're just fine. Do you know what I mean? Everything's alright. And you've got a nice night out, if you're going out, to look forward to in New Year's Eve. Anyway, recently, you've shared a few videos on tournament-related material, so naturally, I thought I'd share a tale with you of my misadventures in a local tournament I attended. This tournament in particular was a couple of years ago. After putting in an obnoxious amount of work for corporate America, to you redcoats, imagine all the characters of The Office playing the Game of Thrones, and you got the idea, I hopped in my pickup, carpooled with some buddies, and drove a quick 4 hours to the next town over. This tournament stretched over a few days, so we booked rooms at various hotels. The usual idea was to use this Warhammer tournament as an excuse to enjoy the city, relax, and have a mini vacation. Warhammer absolutely was a part of the fun, but at least with me, it took more of a back seat than being the main event. However, as I would find out later, my disposition was more exclusive to myself than the average tournament goer. This annual convention is quite large by wargaming standards. It's not limited to Warhammer, although Warhammer does see the most players. My particular tournament was a doubles event. It wouldn't take place until the upcoming Sunday, so I spent the first days losing a few $100 at the various hotel gambling tables and drinking my alcoholic self into an early grave. Early Sunday morning, I meandered over to the convention floor so I could check out what the various booths were selling before my gaming started. Big disclaimer, I'll admit, I was hungover. Now, I might not have looked at it, I can carry myself as a professional. You can thank the Irish and the Chinese in me for that. Drinking and gambling is in my blood. Irish and Chinese. That's an interesting mix. So with that said, imagine my surprise when walking down some steps, I get blocked by a famous quote-unquote Warhammer YouTuber. This guy literally had a cult following of about 10 wargamers behind him, worshipping him like he was Julius Caesar or something. He met me at the bottom of the steps. I said, excuse me. He puffed out his chest and did a Superman pose. I said, hey bud, the person usually at the bottom of the steps is the one to move, you know? He didn't say a word. Instead, just lifted an eyebrow and expected me to move. Now, everybody has seen this guy's face. He's probably one of, if not the most famous Warhammer YouTuber out there. But it's Warhammer, so as far as I was concerned, he can eat shit. So I just pushed past him. I'll admit, dick move on my part, and I could have had a little more finesse, but it's like blocking an elevator, man. Come on, I'm not your slave. Needless to say, his ego deflated and he slumped down into a bad posture. Still, the whole time not saying a word as I made my way through his strange nerd posse. Again, that's something I don't get, right? If you're famous through YouTube, I'm going to just say this. You're famous for nothing. This is why I don't take it very seriously. Like people, it's a running joke when people talk to me on Discord and things. Like, wow, you don't sound like you do on YouTube at all. It's like, yeah, because I'm a normal dude, man. I'm literally a normal bloke. Like, I don't think I'll ever be poisoned by it. Do you know what I mean? Because as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing to be poisoned by. You're running a YouTube channel. You know, you're not Mahatma Gandhi. Not that he was all that great in himself, but you know what I mean? Like, you're not some sort of humanitarian dude. You're not standing up for the people. You're complaining about toy soldiers. Or, if you're even lazier, you're talking about lore about toy soldiers. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, you might not be lazy. But, like, you know, there are a lot of, shall we say, wiki readers out there who like to just read a wiki and pass it off as a YouTube channel. You know, that's not the thing. And then there are original guys like Lewittin, like Amber King, like, you know, guys like that who will generally go on and put the lore into their own words, so that they're actually very good writers and they can talk to you about these things on a level that you get and you can enjoy, right? You have your more jokey channels like Pancreas No Work, right? He's a very, very, very funny jokey channel about the lore. If you want a bit of a more meme, ham-fisted retinue there. But most of these guys work very hard, but also not one of them's an arrogant piece of shit, right? I know from personal experience with one of two of them. Generally, Warhammer YouTubers are very nice people. Generally, right? I've met one douche, right? I've met them all electronically, by the way, so I've not seen them in face-to-face, but I've met one douche in all of that time. So yeah, some people I've met on you've seen me meet them on YouTube channels, and sometimes you've seen me meet them on Discord and things like that. But I've only met one bad one, and I've met like a dozen at this point, almost. Should be almost a dozen. So, you know, 1 in 10 ain't bad. Let's put it that way. 1 in 10 ain't bad. But if you are a kind of person who does this, I don't know why. I don't know why. You run a YouTube channel about toy soldiers. Maybe get off your high horse, yeah? Anyway, I headed to the gaming floor, where my event would now soon take place. I saw in the crowd of gamers a dude who was wearing a team t-shirt and a Speedo. I must have been staring, because a passerby made a comment to me that he's wearing the Speedo because he supposedly lost a bet or something. I gave a slight nod and decided, fuck that noise, and that I wouldn't give it any further thought. Yeah, good plan. My friend and doubles partner arrived around then. We both listened to the tournament brief, got our pairing, met our first opponents, and began setting up. I had about half my army out of the case on the table when one of the opponents brought it to my attention that I had too many Dark Eldar Taluses, and that in this event we were limited to only 2 heavy supports, not 3. I apologised to him and said let's check the tournament packet to see which rule, this rule was nowhere to be found. My opponent said, "You know what, dude, I might be wrong. Let's play and don't worry about it." I responded, "Thanks, but maybe you're right and I'm just not seeing it. I don't want to cheat you. Let me go and check with the tournament organiser." And off I went. Nothing wrong with this so far, right? Upon finding him, I explained the situation. He cut me off partway through and asks, well, didn't you listen to the podcast? To which I responded, what podcast? Annoyed, he says, "Mulligan." Turns his back to me and starts to walk away. I'm not a big golfer, and I've only ever understood the phrase mulligan to mean do-over in golf, which doesn't exactly answer my question of do I keep the current list or change it. I responded by saying, what do you mean a mulligan? To which the tournament organiser yelled back angrily, "It's a mulligan!" and continued to walk away from me. We had quite a few players at this event, and due to this I knew there was a second tournament organiser. I hunted him down, explained the situation, and asked if he could clarify what the organiser meant by a mulligan. As I was asking the assistant organiser for clarification, very rude and obnoxiously, I get yelled at from across a few tables by this fat goth fuck in his 90s Genko jeans. It was the main tournament organiser who shouts out, "Not this guy again! I already told him mulligan! It's a mulligan!" You gotta admire this guy's conviction to the role, you know. I look back over to the assistant organiser and say, "You know what? Don't worry about it." I head back over to my table to explain the retard palooza that just happened. We all have a laugh and decide to just play and not worry about it. The silver lining is, if there was, the silver lining, if there was one, was that this was the first game and it was great. But you know what they say, when it rains, it does usually pour. My partner and I continue onto our second table and start setting up, waiting to see who our opponents are. Our first opponent, a relatively normal guy, introduces himself and starts setting up as well. Then his partner arrives. A man around 6'2", with a beer gut, neck beard, and a gross ass speedo, in all his shameless glory. Let's call him Josh. This fella walks up on our side of the table and stops just short of my partner, who we'll call Randy. Now, to put Randy into perspective, think of a guy who is 6'4", 265 pounds, with abs, and knocks people into the ground on international TV for a living. Okay? If I was a betting man, I'd wager that Randy is entitled to more clout than Warhammer YouTubers. Fat goth tournament organisers with podcasts, or dysfunctional nerds in speedos. So that is why... So why is it that when Randy outstretches his hand for a handshake, Josh folds his arms, snorts and says, "Yeah, we'll see about that, little man." This atrocious attitude continued for the entire game. Snide remarks with every opportunity. At one moment, Josh even came to our side of the table to move some models and actually flexed his skinny arms in front of Randy. The game was so uncomfortable, Randy and I decided to not even play our third round and instead just go gamble at the hotel. On our way out, we bumped into some other 40k players who had already finished their rounds. Each one boasting about how they love to drink and play 40k. One of them claims he can drink 40 shots. I interrupted saying, 40 shots? Of light beer maybe. 40 shots of liquor would kill Andrea the Giant. Not the best icebreaker, I'll admit, but as the resident alcoholic, the comment annoyed me. They didn't seem like an alright bunch. They did seem like an alright bunch, sorry. So I said, "Hey, since you guys have some time before your next round and like to drink, why don't you head out to the casino with us to play and get some booze?" The shorthand description of their response was wide eyes, mumbling, and a dispersal of the group. Yeah, that's posturing, dude. Yeah, yeah. For the most part, that concludes my misadventures of that large tournament. Sorry if my writing comes off as impatient this time around. I just don't understand all the posturing in the community. I feel like it never used to be there. If you don't like to drink, that's completely fine. If you do like to drink, equally fine. You don't need to put on a fake image to just be fun. Just be yourself. People will like you for it. I also have zero understanding of the massive ego behind famous Warhammer people. Cut the ego. You never know who might be in the same room. Sorry if this submission was more of a rant north. I wish you the best. Until next time, your grace, Yancey. Cheers, man. Okay, so the booze thing, yeah, that is more of a juvenile thing to do. That's just somebody who isn't very, shall we say, comfortable in themselves or how they act or. And by the way, these are all Warhammer players. For all of the cool guys who are in this hobby, right? All of the mega chads are in this hobby. There are quite a few people in here who are, shall we say, people who were picked on in high school. Alright? So now that they're with their own people, they're with the nerds, they want to be king of the nerds. They want to be people who are seen as cool. They want to be one of the cool guys for once. And so a lot of them do end up resorting to tactics like this. It's not great, but I can see why they do it. Do you know what I mean? I can see why they do it, because finally it's their time to shine, you know? A guy like you and a guy like Randy just rubs them up the wrong way, because you're normal guys, you're in there, you're having fun, and whilst, you know, that's fine, it's also very intimidating for people like that. To see, oh no, the chads are in here as well. The people who bullied me in high school are here as well. That's what they think, even if it's not true. That's what they think. In terms of Warhammer YouTubers, again, I've said about that before. I don't know what a mulligan is. I'm going to search for that. Warhammer 40,000 podcast. Mulligan. Mulligan. I'm not seeing anything. No, not seeing anything. If it was important and good to know, I'd have seen it. So yeah, it's probably not important or good to know. You know, if a general YouTube search doesn't pull up something cool, or Google search doesn't pull up, you know, if you type in Northern Exile Warhammer, I come up on YouTube or on Google. You know, same with any other YouTuber of note who is doing Warhammer stuff. They will come up on YouTube when you type it in, or on Google. I got nothing there, so I don't know. I don't know who that was that you ran into. I don't know why they had an attitude like that. I will say, it is very, very, very easy for certain personality types to get really, really, really ingrained in their own shit and start sniffing their own farts. Do you know what I mean? It's very, very, very easy for certain people to do that. I wouldn't say I'm that kind of a person, quite luckily. I think I'm okay. If I've ever not gotten back to you, it's because I'm busy. You know, it's not through any sort of... I get this all the time, by the way. I get messages all the time saying, "You're the worst, I messaged you weeks ago, and you haven't messaged me back." And I'm like, well, yeah, I have a life, dude. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you went through the cracks. Your email or your message was buried by thousands, well, not thousands, but hundreds of others. And I didn't get around to it. I've got other things to do. It's Christmas. What do you want me to do? You know, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm facing these teething problems right now on the channel where I made a lot of... I was very available in my first 10,000 subscribers. Do you know what I mean? When I got to 10,000, you know, 10,000 and under, I was very available. I was talking to people all of the time. I was having laughs with people all of the time, and I was very, very, very approachable, and I was there all the time. When we hit 10,000, around October last year, we hit 10,000, and we sort of... It sort of got away from me. Like, the messages I was getting daily were 20 to 30 now, instead of 1 or 2. You know, 1 to 5, I was getting 20 to 30. And that's not doable. That's just not doable. And, you know, I do need to climb down on that. There are a few promises that I made when I was in below 10,000 subscribers that I just can't keep, because there's too many people wanting to be a part of it, which is why I moved some of it over to Patreon. And I said, look, if you're on a certain level on Patreon, I can put some time aside for you and we can have a little chat. Even if it's just text chat, we can have a little chat, you know. But yeah, here we are. I guess I don't get using YouTube as a thing where you say, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, because at the end of the day, you're running as I just said, a YouTube channel that is devoted to toy soldiers. You know, touch grass, dude. Touch grass. Anyway, Gradian says, "Hey, North." In fact, I'm going to take a sip of tea first. Won't do anything though. One thing I forgot to do is read my reads. If you like what I do, make sure you subscribe to the channel. The subscribe button is down below. Hit that button to get me towards 16,000 subscribers. I think we are very, very, very close to our target right now. Let me have a little look-see. We are on 15.9, which I think means... Let me just have a little look-see. We're on 15,974. If you want to be one of the 26 who gets me to 16,000, now is the time to subscribe to the channel, because it would really, really, really help me out. Right. Gradian says, "Hey North, this is a tale from my local games workshop, and it actually happened last year, so most of the names are changed, as most of the people in the story are either still working for the company or are around the local Warhammer scene. So, the Games Workshop around me was a bit of a local mecca for wargamers. Well, anything with Games Workshop's logo on the box anyway, which was the vast majority of hobby stuff in the local area. I have to say this before saying anything else. The guys at the store were and are amazing. A totally awesome bunch of blokes to roll dice with. We support each other and always head out and have fun whenever the opportunity arises. When one of the regulars, Mark, was facing a bit of a rough time with his divorce and losing his job, not only did we band around him and get him out and about to get him out of his own head, one of our number, Clive, a bloke in a similar industry to Mark, just straight up gave him a part-time job. All just to help him out until he found a new job he actually liked and wanted to apply for. That ended up being at Clive's company, and he's still there. That's the kind of group we have, and it is spoiled almost completely by James, the most insufferable Games Workshop manager I have ever come across. I've seen a lot of shitty behaviour by Games Workshop managers over the years. Dry humping customers into buying models they don't want, elitist behaviour, giving the red carpet to big spenders whilst treating the average hobbyist like dirt, rude and uncooperative managers who dismiss their customers and their questions and queries, managers who treat their store as a club for their friends at the detriment of everybody else. I've seen it all. And James was the unicorn who combined all of these traits into a single, terrible whole. When he took over the store, he decreed that we would only play in the store if we booked our time with him, which was fine really, most stores do that. But then he gave us a single 4x4 table on which to play, effectively limiting games to under 1,000 points to fit on a table. He told us when we asked about it, and I quote, "If you don't like it, feel free to find somewhere else to play," unquote. That was his first response, a nuclear option straight away. He also knew full well we had nowhere else to go, and he essentially had us at ransom in the store. So, we gritted our teeth and just shortened down our game times. Okay, the reason why he's done that, I can see why he's done that. If your store is full of gamers and not people who are buying stuff, then you need to start shortening down your gamers and buffing up your recruitment numbers. If that's what he's doing, fair enough. You know, if he just doesn't want you there because he wants the quiet life, that's not the right way to run a store, like, at all, you know? Anyway, any noise coming from the gaming tables above quiet talking would see James come over with a fake smile on his face, and he'd tell us to keep it down and stop disturbing his customers, even if the store was empty. I feel it is important to say here that we were not a group who did a lot of shouting. There were no obnoxious people acting like orcs and warring all over the place, or naming their sisters of battle and crying when they died like in other hobby nightmares that I've listened to. We were mostly dads who liked rolling dice and being around each other. In other words, we were quite quiet, had a laugh, and were always mindful of where we were. We were in Games Workshop, a public space that was being used by other people. This was not enough for James. Before long, our group actively started to wonder if he was trying to get us to leave the store. The thing was, we were his only really loyal customers. That's a dangerous game, dude. That is a dangerous game, and I've said it before. Your store should be about recruitment, but you should also retain customers. You should also retain, your veterans, your guys who are going to bring up the young guys, right? If you don't want to be a fucking crash for, 13-year-old boys, then you need other lads in your store who are older, have played the game for a while, who can teach the game to other people. You need them. If you have a store full of really cool dudes, really cool guys who are into Warhammer, they're going to be the heroes for the youngsters and even normal people coming in and wanting to get involved in the hobby, especially if they're good. What you need to do is factor out all the dickheads. So if you do get dickheads in your store, then make sure you phase them out. You phase them out gradually out of your store, and you cultivate the good people. I've said that so many times. That's how you run a successful Games Workshop store. You cultivate good customers, right? If there are people like, listen, my manager hated his regulars. Absolutely despised them. Couldn't stand them. There were a group of lads called the Demonettes. Brilliant bunch of lads. Absolutely took me under their wing when I was working there. Absolutely lovely. Some of them are in the comment section sometimes saying hello. They're brilliant, and I can't say enough good about them. Thank you very much for taking me under your wing. But those lads were looked up to by a lot of other kids in the store, and a lot of other hobbyists would come in and strike up conversations with some of the lads who were in there, right? Because they're all normal blokes, or they were teachers, they were office workers, they were lawyers, they were all these other things. Every single factor of life was in the store. And they all worked really hard to make it a really nice place. Despite the manager, not because of him. Because the manager despised them. Why? Because they were gamers. And he looked at gaming as not a proper part of the hobby. He looked at the hobby as being, you build and make and paint your models. That's the hobby. Gaming's just something that's there. And it really did rub him the wrong way. They still spent money in the store, they did. But they wouldn't go out of their way to, throw money in his till for no reason. They wouldn't do that kind of a thing. And he hated that. He just completely hated it. But some of the customers who would come in, who would spend a lot of money, but were only there once a month, he would absolutely be all over them, and literally, you know, it was like, you know, he was a diabetic, as I said before, and their penises were made of insulin. He was down there, sucking them good style, right? Because they were spending money in the store. But these guys he hated. Problem is a lot of the people in the store actually liked them, and were, shall we say, brought up in the hobby by them, taught really cool techniques in gaming and painting and converting by those guys. They were a loyal set of dudes, and even my manager wouldn't get rid of them. He could have said, I'm not doing games in the store anymore, or I'm only doing 4x4 tables now, so get out if you don't want to do that, and they would have left. They would have gone somewhere else, because there was another store nearby that they could have gone to. But he didn't. Why? Because as much as he hated them, he knew the value they brought to his store. And this is a guy who hates regulars, who hates veterans, right? He thinks they're time vampires, he thinks they're suffocating his store, but even he didn't get rid of them. Because number one, they are spending money in the store, number two, they're cultivating a good atmosphere in the store, and number three, the good ones in there, the good actors in there, are actively bringing more people into the hobby by getting them into it. Okay? They're the best advertisement for the hobby, because they're having fun doing the hobby that you're trying to sell in the store. Literally is that simple. Literally. Anyway. Christmas last year was time for our yearly event, and it was James's first Christmas at the company. By some miracle, I got him to agree to allow us to run our small tournament in the store. He told me, though, that he wanted to make £2,000 from the event in terms of sales. What? This was a ridiculous number, and was essentially setting us up to fail. I told him that, and told him that a 16-man tournament would mean each participant was spending £125 in store over Christmas in order to be in the tournament, and nobody would do that just to be in a tournament. He told me there and then that if we didn't hit that target for buy-in from the store, then I needed to find somewhere else from then on in to play my tournaments. I was fuming, and that was essentially the last straw. Dude, you can't do that. You can't do that. Alright? You set your tournament up to make money in the store, and then you see how much money it makes. You do not treat it like a fucking fundraiser. Your Games Workshop. Alright? That's got the same energy as Electronic Arts releasing one of their AAA games in early access. No. You're a billion-dollar company. I'm not beta testing your fucking game for you. Alright? Same energy. Same energy. Do not do this. If you're going to run an event in your store, then, you know, you do an incentive for them to spend money in the store, sure, right? The way I did it was that I did certain rules for certain models and units that you could build yourself in the store. So if you bought a 2 units in the store, you could convert them into 1 unit. That's really, really, really powerful to use in the games, right? That was an incentive for them to spend money in the store, and it worked. They spent a lot more money as we went through. But don't do things like this. Especially not if you've been a prick the entire time. You're just asking for failure. What are you doing? Anyway, carrying on. I started buying pieces of terrain and putting plans in place with the lads to get our own boards together. By the time Christmas came around, we had a snow, desert and city board all almost ready to go in my heated garage. We headed to the Games Workshop for the tournament, and the event went without a hitch. Absolutely awesome times had by everyone. One of our players, Jack, was 13 and was playing in the same tournament as his dad, which was awesome. His dad was called Alan. We kept them apart in the draw, as Alan told us Jack was very good at the game. And true enough, both of them ended up in the final game, playing for all the marbles. Then James came over as we were starting to set up for the game. Red-faced. He had his banking slip in his hand. He had closed the store but allowed us to play whilst he cashed up. something you should never do at a Games Workshop, but hey, at least we got to play. He came over, ashen-faced, and told us the target for the event was £2,000, and we had barely hit 1,000. He then told us, and I quote, "Look, I'm sorry, but having you here is simply not worth it for my business, guys. You need to finish up and leave as the store is closed for the evening." We were a bit gobsmacked, and I looked over to Alan, who took one look at the gutted look on his son's face and got into an argument with James. "Hang on," said Alan, to which James said, no, but was cut off by Alan, essentially losing his shit. And I quote, no, hang on. £2,000 is a ridiculous amount for a store of this size to make in a week, never mind a fucking evening. The fact you have over £1,000 in that till from the good people here is a bloody miracle, because you are the most insufferable, toad-like gimp I've ever had the misfortune of running into on company property, mate. Unquote. This started a slanging match between the two before I finally stepped in and said, and I quote, "Listen, it's a moot point anyway, lads. James has laid out what he wants. We can't meet that, so we can enjoy the money we have brought in and we can go our own way, alright? We are heading for a pint later anyway, so what say we finish this game at my place? I have something to show you, lads. We can finish the game there with a nice table." A few of them just went home, as they couldn't stay out, but about 8 of us left James standing in his store and went to my garage, where I set out the newly finished city board, put the heater on, and opened the garage fridge that was full of ice-cold beer. Jack won the game against Alan, 37-35, and we saw them home before heading out for a few jars. The gaming club soon moved into my garage thanks to the very understanding nature of my wife, and we have never looked back. The danger of having such an attitude for a Games Workshop manager should be plain for all to see. The store is now mostly empty, and although James is still there, I have a feeling that is because it was empty before we got there too. I see him every now and again, and we exchange a few awkward pleasantries, but he still has that arrogant, looking down his nose look about him that makes me want to slap him. From the experiences of others who have joined in our group since, he has not changed at all. They go to Games Workshop, get turned off of the hobby by James, and they come and find us. Thanks, North. Gradian. Jesus Christ, dude. That store must be tiny. And also being run into the ground, but to a point where the Games Workshop are like, well, we may as well have this store here than not having it, so just get on with it, sort of a thing. Do you know what I'm saying? But my God, I do not know how he's getting away with that. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Anyway, I will be back tomorrow, guys, for some more Void Talons, which should be funny tomorrow. Some more lore on the Void Talons should be on its way tomorrow. And then on Friday, we'll be having some more hobby nightmares. So, I'll see you then. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.